Well, this week there's also going to be a prominent case in the Supreme Court they're going to be talking about. And the reason why I want to talk about it is because is this Murphy's Law, the irony, or is this just preeminency of the golden firewall? I talked about this. I don't know if you remember, colleague, but, China has the Great Firewall, which they kind of block your internet access. And
wait, is that the Great Firewall of China?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's like the internet proxy where they monitor internet access and they restrict access to like Facebook or Google or whatever they want. And we already know at some point America's going to do that too, but they don't have any real set regulations yet. But I know it's coming, and I'm coining it the golden firewall because, Trump likes to gold everything. Mm-hmm. Golden thrones, golden toilets, golden everything. But, his thing is going to be, he has the golden dome he was talking about, but the golden firewall. Because this week, the Supreme Court's going to be taking a case. I think on Monday, they first was addressing it this past Monday. But it's a case between Cox Cable and Sony. And on the surface, it's like, why do you even care about this? So what the case is talking about, colleague, is Sony is mad that so many people are downloading pirated information, pirated videos, pirated shows, pirated songs. And they are blaming the internet service provider, Cox Cable, for allowing their users to download this stuff. And they're saying you should restrict their access to the internet because you keep allowing them to download this stuff, and you know that they're downloading this stuff. So they are taking this case to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is going to decide, should internet service providers be forced to restrict internet access because a company of any sort is making accusations of copyrighted material. It could be anything from intellectual property. Because remember, court cases are precedents. And precedents can be used in the future for almost anything. So I'm going to play this clip just for a second, and then we're going to talk about what are the implications and how does this apply to something that we could see called the golden firewall.
The court is about to decide if your internet access can be taken away from you because of an accusation. It's a pretty landmark case that not really many people are talking about, which is Cox Communications versus Sony Music. And while I can acknowledge that it's a complex case, what's essentially happening is Sony is saying that Cox Communications allowed too many of its subscribers to download pirated material, and that the remedy for this, because Cox did not do enough, was to basically terminate the use of the internet for those customers. I have a difficult time of overstating how much of an overreach that is and how damaging that could be, because we're not talking about someone who was convicted of a crime or found guilty by a court. We're talking about someone that has been accused of something by a private company losing access to the internet. And of course, the internet is the backbone of so much of our modern life. And it's easy for you to say, oh, well, if you lose internet access from one place, go somewhere else. That's not an option for a lot of people. And even if, say, this case were to go forward and the Supreme Court were to say yes, because of accusations of copyright infringement from a private company, another company must terminate the internet access of the end user. In this case, we're not just talking about one person. We're talking about an IP address. So in theory, that would be the entire house. So if someone in your house gets accused of downloading a song illegally, the whole house loses internet?
So let's just take, for example, remember, all things are precedents, which are just basically acclamation. So let's assume for a minute that the Supreme Court passes and says, yes, Cox Cable, you're going to be required to delete internet. And everybody's going to say, who cares? You shouldn't be downloading internet, illegal material, whatever. Nobody's going to say, who cares? But it's precedent. So let's say that the government or a corporation says, you were talking on a YouTube video about something we think is a national security issue, or that's intellectual property. You said that. So you should now be refused internet service. This sets precedent for any justification for anything to be restricted, not because you went to court, not because you were found guilty, just simply because a company or an entity or a government or anybody accuses you of something. So now the internet service provider is going to be required to remove internet access from you.
Well, what's funny is I heard about, I'm sure a lot of our audience has heard about this too. There was a big channel just recently that got under heavy fire by the DHS. I think it was called Toilet Time Television. Really great channel, but at least it was. But yeah, it got grappled.
Yeah, and what's interesting about those individuals and their situation is that could just be one of the things that they could utilize as this court case as a qualifier to say they were saying something, and they don't have to prove anything. If this case goes through, it's just an accusation, and you can remove internet access.
Yeah, because those guys were onto some things.
Well, if it's
Toilet Time podcast show guys, they were onto some things that I don't think the government wanted to be let out yet.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that it doesn't just stop at podcasts. It could be a business. It could be a business. It could be a hospital. It could be a university. It could be anything. Educational systems, hospitals, anybody who doesn't comply.
They're going to cut the internet.
Right. Now imagine what happens if they cut the internet off to a university. Or if they cut the internet off to a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
If they cut the internet off to a business.
If they cut my internet of my home, my kids won't be able to have food to eat. Because that's how we all work, is from our phones nowadays. Like, even if you work at Taco Bell, you still need a phone to get there. You need a phone to be able to call your boss, to be able to look at the schedule. If I don't work, my kids don't eat. Like, I'm still going to eat, but my kids won't eat.
Well, yeah, I guess that's what happens. But, like the guy was saying, which is interesting itself, is I don't know how they would do this inherently, because if I do something wrong, I should get punished for it, and it's fine. But internet is correlated with a single IP that's sent to your house. Then you use a router using DHCP, and that splits that one IP into multiple IPs so many people can use this one IP. If the internet service provider blocks that one IP, the whole entire internet or business or hospital or whatever that is sharing this single IP is gone. That means everybody loses access.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't even know how that's double. Like, now you're guilty by accusation, but then people are going to be guilty just by association. And now they're going to face consequences.
Yeah, like I said, just for starters, my kids, like, they're going to be going to school. They're not going to have lunches in their lunch boxes. And not only that, they're going to come home and they're going to try to eat stuff like, Swiss rolls, but they're going to have to eat the cheaper Swiss rolls and leave the other ones for mommy and daddy, because the more expensive ones taste better. Right. And everybody knows that. But the cheaper Swiss rolls, my kids will have to eat those instead of the more expensive ones.
I just don't think a lot of people see a lot of these cases as precedent, as much as they're like, who cares? It's not affecting my life. But ultimately, this means your phone. Your phone is an internet service provider. Mm-hmm. You can lose access to your phone. You can lose access to the internet. And you're going to lose access to everything. And it's all because of an accusation. So China has the Great Firewall. But these kind of cases set precedent for the Golden Firewall. Whenever the government wants to restrict access to you, a group, an entity, like they're going after right now Antifa, that whole group of people who are supposed to be anti-fascist groups, they're coining them as a domestic terrorist group. Well, anybody connected to that, they may say, well, they don't need the internet. Let's restrict the internet because we can restrict the way they meet, gather, and distribute information. And eventually they could say that about anything. So
they're already limiting access to some of the internet, some of the apps out there to 16-year-olds and under, which I think is a good thing. But yeah, I don't know. Once you pop the top, the fun don't stop.
Yeah, but that's just one thing. Of course, they're always using children. They're always going to say, we're here to protect the children. Mm-hmm. Give up your rights for the children. And it's like, if people have a household, their responsibility is their children. The government, this isn't a nanny state. The government's job isn't to raise your kids. The government job isn't to moderate all that. It's your job. You're the parent.
You know, we have like these sphere sovereignties.
And so, parents, that's fine. I think inherently all parents want that freedom. It's like if I want my child to watch something or not, that's my responsibility. It's not the government's job to do that. And if you are a kind of parent that wants the government to do that, then you should be happy that the government controls everything in your life too. Everything. But no, at some point you don't want the government to do that. You don't really want a nanny state. And you can't pick and choose because once you let the government do a little bit, you give them an inch, they're taking it all.
Honestly, I think it'd be great if you told me that there'd be a world with no internet. I feel like that'd be really cool. But yeah, I know the government would still use it. But at least for the common people that shouldn't probably have internet, that'd be really cool. I would love it. I'm an old school guy, and I'm not just saying this. This has nothing to do with the whole Twinkie thing, the Swiss rolls. Okay, so don't hear me saying that. It has absolutely nothing to do. I'll swear by it. Because at the end of the day, the great value Swiss rolls do taste, almost like the expensive ones. And I can, even though my kids can't tell the difference, I can tell the difference. But that's neither here nor there. It has nothing to do with that. I'm just saying, if there was no internet, I think I would be a happier person. I think a lot of people would be. Like, if the government restricts your internet, how are they going to force feed all this propagation, all this news stuff, and war on Israel, and war in the heavenlies, and aliens coming and invading, AI coming and invading, Russia coming and invading? How are they going to shove all this stuff down people's throats if they cut their internet?
Well, what they've always been doing is TV and radio and every other media.
The TVs run off internet now too. Most everybody has. I'm
saying if you had no internet, then we wouldn't have all these streaming services, and we just go back to cable. Everybody had cable. Everybody always had cable. And it was affordable back then. And I think the reason why it started getting unaffordable was because they were trying to move towards streaming. So no, it'd just be back to cable. Everybody would have had cable.
They even got my neighbor. He used to have TV, but now he has cable.
And there'd be more movies with more heavier propaganda. The movies, I think, are down quality too because they just got so much media. They don't need to
VHS, like DVD. Blu-ray.
Yeah, if you don't have the internet, you have to imagine if the internet never existed, then everybody would just be doing what they've always been doing.
Yeah, not just never existed. We live in a day and age right now where Gen Zs won't even know how to work a VHS, a DVR. They won't know how to use a DVD
I'm not
player.
talking about deleting it today. You're saying assuming that it wasn't here.
No. I'm saying if the government restricts internet for my household, that's going to be good for my household. We're going to be the most calmest, the least anxious people in the entire United States.
The problem becomes that in today's day, if you're talking about using current infrastructure and then deleting the internet, the problem becomes there's no way to do almost anything. There's no way to communicate through your companies. Everybody uses emails. There's no way to do job applications. There's no way to do almost anything without the internet. So once they restrict that, you won't be able to get a job. You won't be able to get a hospital. You won't be able to get applications, healthcare. You won't be able to communicate. You won't be able to do almost anything.
We talked about, health insurance and healthcare before. It's like, they're going to save me from paying, $8,000 to where I only had to pay like $2,000, for example. Again, I feel like I'm going to be a lot better off without all these amenities.
Yeah, maybe, but there's a lot of infrastructure that wouldn't work, like online retailers. A lot of these local retailers like Walmart and stuff, they're forcing people now to use online apps.
I'll just go get swole at the liquor store.
Yeah, but your family and children, they want food to eat.
They can get swole too.
Yeah, but that's the whole point. Our whole entire infrastructure now is forced to be connected to the internet.
I know how to put bread on the table. I've done it before. And my wife actually knows how to make bread. She knows how to make it from scratch.
Yeah. Well, all I can say is one thing the internet does allow, it does allow information to be more accessible than ever before. If somebody has the internet, they can learn something today that they would never have been able to learn, 100 years ago. If somebody wanted to learn how to build a bicycle, or somebody wanted to learn how to build a house, learn how to read blueprints, anything you wanted to learn, there is a way to learn something. Fix a car, watch a YouTube video, anything.
I'll just go cut a dome out of a rock.
Yeah, I know, but there's a lot of people who are not living in the Flintstones. And so
I will be, and we'll be happier than anybody else.
if we had a world where internet never existed, that's one thing.
Well, that's not even a real world. I'm saying, let's just say it exists just like today, but then they cut your internet. Like you're saying, they're going to start threatening to cut people's internet. I'm saying, go ahead. I got enough. We can do it. Like I said, my wife can make the bread, and I can take the bread, and then I can put it on the table.
Yeah, you're just talking about living like Amish people. But another thing will also become, there's be a limitation of speech. The government and everybody else will be able to flood the internet with all that, but then there's people like us and those guys on toilet time like that. They won't have any means of being able to talk about whatever's going on and these third base agendas.
Well, the Amish people's tractors still work on the internet, and their cell phones still use the internet. Everything the Amish does, they still use the internet. So yeah, the government could still punish them too. They just turn off their tractors, turn off their cell phones, turn off their cell towers, turn off their buggies and all these stupid things that they actually use still, even though they're saying they're not.
And to force them to even go way back, way back.
Yeah, like what they actually claim to be doing, like real Amish paradise. Shout out to Weird Al.
Right. And if that's what people want, they can have that now. They don't have to wait. They can just go do that now. And you don't need to be Amish. You can just literally just go get a plot of land out in the middle of Arkansas and do that right now.
And live off the rocks.
Yeah, you can do that over at Little Rock. So you don't need that now. If you want to do that, you can do it now.
But I have buddies right now who are living off the rock.
Yeah, that's good. Shout out to truth seekers out there. But for the rest of us that live in a world where we already can barely live with the cost of living, you can't have access to banking without some digital internet access. They're forcing the slow eradication of cash, which means if you don't have internet, you won't have any access to financial institutions. And at some point, how do you pay your mortgage? How do you pay anything? Like renters, maybe if your landlord lives close to you, you could drive to their house. But a lot of landlords now don't. They're all over the state, and you have to pay them through Venmo or the bank or some other means. Mortgages, you have to do that. I mean, I guess you can mail checks, but I assume soon they're going to eradicate checks. And once everything becomes digitalized, if you lose the internet, you're losing your life.
There's more than one way to pay your landlord.
I don't know. I think they're going to force it. Like I said before, like last week, I think I talked about it on live. The goal is to tokenize the economy. And if that's the end game, because that is the way to control everybody, is tokenize it. If you force the world to accept the digitalized world, internet access is literally your lifeline. And once you're restricted, you have no life.
Yeah, again, all it takes is a little bit of humbleness. And you can, if you're a landlord, you can, instead of, if you can't make rent that month, you can help them trim their bush. You can help them plow their sidewalks when there's too much snow. You can help them do anything. You can help them lay carpet, pole trim, do anything. Like you can help your landlord in those hard to reach areas of life that they don't want to do themselves. What's the matter?
Yeah, I was making
smell a rat.
Yeah. But that leads me to the other point, which is starting next year, mid-January. I'm going to wait for everybody to come back. I'm going to start a series where I'm going to talk at least about one thing
on how to help your
every
landlord.
week about, can it be programmed? Is it programmable? Is what the series is going to be. I'm going to talk about, can blood be programmable? Cells be programmable? Brains, your eyes, lights, media, everything, currency, life. Can everything be programmed?
Well, I feel like you should also do a series. To be fair, you should do a series on how to pay your landlord too.
Yeah, I'll talk about that in the financial section about the tokenized economy. But I'm gonna try to at least touch on one thing about things that are programmed. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is programmable blood. But so you guys stay tuned for next year. We're going to get into the interwebs of programmability, because I do think that's where eventually, because we talked about it for years. Well, those other guys did. I don't know about us, but those other guys talked about for years. IOBs, the Internet of Bodies, these smart devices that are medical devices, digital injectable pills, xenobots, programmable anything. And so it's not just your money, it's literally your livelihood. And eventually, I think they're going to have programmable red blood cells, programmable almost everything. But I'm going to get into that next year, so you guys look into that. But this is a video to remind everybody. The government's not doing anything bad. The government's not doing anything. They just want you to trust me, bro. Just like this person.
Whoa.
Trust me, bro. I'm a professional. Trust me, I'm the government. I know exactly what I'm doing. Don't worry. Don't be scared. Why are you scared? Hey. Trust me, I've done this before. I'm the government. Yeah, I got it. Don't worry. I'm the government. You can trust me.
Wow.
I'm the government. I would never hurt you.
That would have actually hurt her.
Yeah, but that's what the government, they want you to be like her. Like, I can feel it. I feel this is not safe. This is not good. But they're like, hey, trust me. And eventually it's going to get real close like that. And some of us are going to still be standing there like, okay, all right. But you know everything in you is saying you need to get out of here. But you won't. You're going to still say the government wouldn't do that.